Welcome to the October 1st, 2025 Issaquah Candidate Forum, hosted by the Issaquah branch of the American Association of University Women, the Kiwanis Club of Greater Issaquah, and recorded by the City of Issaquah. I am Vicki McCorkindale, and with me is Judy Rogers, your moderators. Tonight, you will hear from two candidates for 5th Legislative District State Senate, 2 candidates for King County Council District 3, and then 2 candidates for 41st Legislative District State Representative Position 1. Both legislative districts and King County Council position represent Issaquah.
The forum will begin with 2-minute opening statements. During the question and answer period, each candidate will have 1 minute for responses and a 30-second rebuttal from the first responder. Our timer is Kathleen Friedman. She's seated in the front row and will raise a warning when 15 seconds remain and a stop signal when time is up.
Questions have been formulated by the organizing committee and gathered from the community. We may choose to ask a follow-up question. We will alternate who will respond first to a question.
Time permitting, the last question for each set of candidates will come from the opposed candidates themselves. Each candidate will get an opportunity to ask their challenger a question. And this year it will be time permitting. We have a lot of different races to do.
Let's get started. Our first set of candidates are seeking to represent the 5th Legislative District in the State Senate. The Senate candidates for District 5 are Victoria Hunt and Chad Magendans. In order to keep the forum friendly, we will use only first names going forward. We will begin with 2-minute opening statements from Victoria, followed by Chad.
Good evening. My name is Victoria Hunt, and I have the honor of serving in the State Senate representing the 5th Legislative District. I'm a mom and a scientist. My children are in the Issaquah Public Schools, and as both a mom and a scientist, I'm really honored that I get to fight for this community, especially right now when I see attacks on science and on our basic rights from the federal level. When I look at the headlines, for example, right now we see that the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency of the United States, is no longer required to disclose, requiring our major polluters to disclose their pollution. And at the state level, I'm extremely honored that I've been able to champion policies that protect our clean air and clean water. I was able to pass a bill in the last legislative session that ensures that when there's a sewage spill, that's disclosed to the public. This was a bipartisan bill. I worked closely across the aisle to make sure that it passed and that we are able to continue to have clean air and clean water, which not only benefits our public health, but also protects our environment. And these are the kinds of solutions that I want to continue to advance for our community and for all Washingtonians. Before I served in the State Senate, I served in the House of Representatives, and before that, I served multiple terms on the Issaquah City Council, actually serving right here from this very dais. And I have been so honored to work on issues including affordability, making sure that we have housing that is affordable for folks all across our district at all income levels, and to continue to work on the challenges that we face. My campaign has earned broad support from 4 in-district mayors, council members from across the region, police, nurses, firefighters, teachers, and more. And I look forward to your questions this evening.
Hi, I'm Chad Magendans, and thank you for joining us here today. I served 12 years in the U.S. Navy, 20 years working at Microsoft doing software development, 8 years as the CTO of voter science, and I'm now in my 7th year as a teacher in the Bellevue School District. I've served 2 terms in the State House of Representatives after serving as president in the Issaquah School Board, and I was reelected with an 18% margin and then challenged Mark Mullet, actually the incumbent for this position, and got 49.7% of the vote. I have an electrical and computer engineering degree from Cornell and a Master of Arts in Teaching from Central Washington University. And As far as political philosophy, I'm a fiscal conservative and strict constitutionalist, but lean libertarian on social issues. Basically, I want big government out of our wallets and out of our bedrooms. My greatest concern that I see right now is the growth of government. We've been asked to manage our budgets over the last 8 years, but one party rule down Olympia has allowed the state budget to more than double since I left. And most of us can't look back and say that our salaries have doubled during that time. And so we've got to exercise some fiscal restraint, and that's something that's been consistently lacking since I left the legislature. I have a proven track record. Looking back over the 30 years that they published the results for voting records, I've got the most independent voting record of anyone representing the 5th, and I'm running against the member who has the most partisan voting record of anyone who represented the 5th. Seattle Times has regularly recognized my ability to successfully work across the aisle and build coalitions. I did so as one of the lead negotiators for the McCleary Remedy, which doubled state funding for schools over 8 years. I was also prime sponsor for the charter schools fix, both which were ratified by the Supreme Court in the 2018 decisions. I also did landmark legislation on EV infrastructure. We shut down the coal-by-wire program in Montana. I was the prime sponsor for those works. And then I was prime sponsor for the Washington Cybercrime Act, which created 3 new Class C felonies and 2 misdemeanors, gross misdemeanors, so we could go after the biggest criminals out there taking our grandparents' money for the most part. So I look forward to the opportunity to return to the legislature and continue the work that I started, especially when it comes to education. I feel we've made a landmark investment and really need to follow through on some accountability measures to make sure that it's resulting in better student outcomes.
Thank you. We're going to start the portion with the questions, and if you don't hear me or whatever, I am happy to repeat. We're happy to repeat the questions. So we're going to start Victoria first, and then Chad, your chance to also answer. Our nation is deeply divided. Can you share an example of a time when you worked effectively with someone or a group with whom you had significant disagreements? So Victoria first.
Thank you for this question. I absolutely agree that we need to make sure we are working together towards common goals. And I see this in my conversations across the district. I believe that there are a lot of things that unite us, and I want to make sure that I'm serving everyone across my community, across the 5th, and across the state of Washington. One example that comes to mind is that there oftentimes, when we're looking at how to make sure that the cities are able to effectively take into account the unique characteristics of their circumstances, and the state is passing laws to make sure that we have housing that is affordable, we need to work on with the cities, and I was able to do that throughout my first session.
As mentioned earlier, we had some bipartisan work on the McCleary fix as well as the charter school fix. I also served as chair in many joint committees, which were Senate and the House. And so I was elected by my peers to lead the McCleary work, plus school siting committee. Let's see, what else? The infrastructure and technology work that we were doing for the legislature. Probably the best example of being able to work across the aisle is I served on the Republican Advisory Committee for the National Planned Parenthood organization, focusing on how to message to conservatives on this particular issue of reproductive rights.
Victoria, do you have a rebuttal?
Well, I would like to add one additional thing, which is I am very proud of my record, having passed 3 bills in the House of Representatives during my first session, last session, and they were all bipartisan. They all had a Republican co-sponsor, and I worked closely with that co-sponsor on each one of those bills. They advanced clean energy, clean water, and family-friendly policies.
What motivated you to run for this office? Chad, you go first.
Well, as president of the school board, I learned very quickly that the decisions were made where the money's spent. And so I was encouraged to run for the legislature, and I wanted to be part of the McCleary fix from day one. There wasn't a long line for that, surprisingly. And so right off the bat, I was ranking member of the House Education Committee and involved as a lead negotiator on that work. And I believe that we made great progress in a bipartisan fashion. But now I look back and I say, hey, listen, we made this historic investment, and our test scores are continuing to drop. We have an enrollment problem. Across the state, we've lost 4% enrollment. Here in Issaquah, 10.3% of enrollment, and it's continuing to drop even after COVID. And we've got an attendance issue. You know, over a third of kids are missing 3 weeks or more of school. And so there's clearly some work to do to follow through on that investment to make sure that academic achievement remains a priority and we have better student outcomes.
Victoria?
I was very honored to be appointed unanimously to this position, the state Senate, following the passing of State Senator Bill Ramos. And my original reasons for getting involved in the community were around making sure that we are protecting our beautiful natural environment here, while also making sure that we're addressing the growth that we're seeing all across the region, and making sure that there are housing for folks at all income levels. And so really the values that I hold, I went to volunteer in the Planning Policy Commission for the city of Issaquah. And then from there, I saw opportunities to continue serving my community at the city council level, and served for 3 terms there, including as council president, and have continued from there.
There's no rebuttal on this one.
Our next question: small businesses are vital to the vibrancy of our communities. What actions do you propose to help them survive and thrive? So Victoria first.
I think that our small businesses really are the heart of our community. We need to make sure that we are advancing policies that promote a business-friendly environment. And I believe strongly in working closely with our individual businesses, with our chambers of commerce, and with our entrepreneurs to make sure that they have opportunities. And I very much am honored to be the voice of our small businesses in Olympia and bringing that voice to ensure that we are passing policies that give them opportunities throughout the community.
So it's interesting you asked that today, because today is the first day of this new sales tax policy. And so we're going to see sales tax affect a lot more different businesses. Traditionally, sales tax has been for material goods that you purchase. Now it's for services, and you're going to see it pop up in a dozen more different locations. And that's making it even tougher for businesses to survive in this climate. Now, they had a tough time going through COVID. They had a tough time going through 2020 and a lot of the riots and looting that were happening in our downtown areas. And now we're hitting them with more taxes. Now, let me be really clear about how much more taxes we have here. Just this last legislative session, the operating budget had a record $9.4 billion in new taxes. And wait, we're not done yet. The transportation budget added 6 cents per gallon, and they had $3.2 billion in new taxes. And then there was another $2 billion that was authorized for municipalities to approve councilmatically, which means no vote of the people. And so we're talking about almost $15 billion in new taxes. And if you look at where that was positioned most, it was on our businesses, which is going to trickle down to be a cost of living issue for consumers.
Victoria, rebuttal.
This was a difficult budget year. We had a large deficit going in, and I knew that an all cuts budget would have been devastating. It would have cut critical services, including public safety, that our businesses need to be successful. And so the all cuts budget for me was not an option. I do very much intend to continue to work with our business community on making sure that the sales tax and other policies are implemented in a fair way. And I think this was not a budget that any of us wanted, but I will absolutely go back and fight for fair policies.
What unique experiences and perspectives can you bring? I believe that was her rebuttaling on you. But she started representing at the state. Yes, correct? Yes. Okay. Question. What unique experiences and perspectives can you bring to improve the budget process? Chad, you first.
All right. So the first thing we have to do is contain our spending habits. If you look at the current budget right now, we have record revenues. We have continued to have revenues increase year to year, but our spending has not stayed in line with the increasing revenue. And so we just have to rein in the spending. We did this while we were down in the legislature. I had the good fortune of serving while we had a bipartisan legislature. The Republicans controlled the Senate, Democrats controlled the House, and we were able to manage doubling state funding for schools without major new taxes. In fact, if you look at the total increases in new taxes during those areas, it was completely economic growth. So focus on restraining our spending, and then we can move on from there.
The unique perspective that I bring is having served at the local level and having served this community for many years, and also working closely with our cities and with our unincorporated rural community. I believe that there are many things that we need to continue to prioritize in the budget so that folks can get to work, so that folks can continue to stay in their homes, and that their seniors can downsize if they choose to. So all of these policies, I bring that community connection to make sure that those are prioritized in the budget. Public safety and public education are things that we need to continue to work on. And I was very, very honored to be able to make investments in those areas in the budgeting last session. And I believe we can continue to make progress.
Rebuttal, Chad?
All right, then we'll move on to our next question. Homelessness is still a pressing issue. How can the state, county, and city governments collaborate to fund tiny homes or low-cost housing in our cities and state? So we'll start with Victoria.
Housing supply is something that I care deeply about, making sure that there are options for affordable housing. And it's something that when I talk to folks all across our district, it is something that they're really concerned about. Seniors are really concerned about being able to continue to live in their communities. Parents are concerned that their children might not be able to move here. I personally have very much benefited from the fact that my family was able to move to an apartment and are able to participate in childcare for my children. And so we need to make sure that we're providing opportunities for folks at all income levels. And that has to do with supply and cutting through the red tape to make sure we have more housing options. Additionally, I also am very supportive of making sure that there are people that can connect folks experiencing homelessness to services so that they can get back on their feet.
So I agree that supply is the major issue for the cost of housing right now. We need to streamline permitting, reform zoning, and reduce fees that slow or block construction of affordable housing and transitional shelters. So for example, there are developments like the Lake Point development that are right there on Highway 18 that have been stagnant for the last 10 years because we put up too many barriers to move those projects along. But the homelessness you see in the street, I don't believe is due to the cost of housing as well as it is the issues that are affecting the drug dependency and mental health issues on the street. And so I believe strongly that we need to require more treatment programs, that the housing first strategies have not worked. We need a treatment first plus housing model. We need to get behind some tenting bans to make sure that we ensure public camping bans, restore access to parks, sidewalks, and business areas while ensuring shelter alternatives are available. We need to reconsider a lot of the eviction moratoriums that we struggled with these last,
All right, Victoria, rebuttal.
Well, on the Issaquah City Council, we were one of the early adopters of a co-response program. And this last legislative session, we made investments in co-response programs for our communities across the state. These are programs where our public safety, our law enforcement can work with providers of services, especially when there are calls for service, calls to 911, and nobody actually is committing a crime, but rather there's a need for connecting that individual with services. And so I think we must continue to support our communities with those sorts of programs.
Great, thank you. In today's anti-immigrant climate, what steps can be taken to reduce fear and foster a sense of security within our communities? Chad first.
So let's be upfront here. I believe that our current policies are creating a bit of a problem. These sanctuary cities and sanctuary states are interfering with the federal government performing its legal duties to enforce current immigration law. And if we need to change immigration law, we should do that. And I encourage that there's immigration reform that needs to be done. However, not allowing law enforcement to work with federal agents doing their job is not the way to go about it. I really believe that let's see. I'm sorry about that. Okay, there we go. So secure borders, absolutely. We need secure borders. We need to support federal enforcement, and I don't think we should be fighting ICE in the street when they're just doing their job. We need to have work visas with some guardrails so that legal immigration is part of America's strength and that we still protect American labor.
Thank you for this question. I am reminded of a community member that I spoke to. I was talking with them at their home, and they invited me into their home because they were wanting to have a private conversation, and they told me that they are fearful and that they're carrying their passport around because they're concerned about what they're seeing in the news and the lack of due process that has been experienced by some individuals in our community. And so this is a fear that is in our community. I was very moved by this gentleman's story. And we need to make sure that we're supporting our immigrant community, making sure they know their rights, making sure that they know their due process and they know where to go to get legal help. I think that those are very important. And we do have community groups that I support in our community that are providing those services.
Rebuttal, Chad?
So I think the key here is to make our illegal immigrants legal, okay? Not to ignore the law or selectively enforce the law. We need work visa programs so that where American workers aren't available, such as agriculture, healthcare, and high demand trades, we can bring them in and make them a productive part of our society and remove this stigma that they have of being here as an illegal alien. But we do need to be sensitive to American workers. So immigration policy has to serve our national interests, and we want to take the best and the brightest of those that are available as immigrants and make sure that we honor our commitments to American workers first.
All right, thank you both. And we do have time for that optional question that I had mentioned before. So we're going to wrap up this part with questions posed by each one of you to each other. So you'll have 1 minute to respond to your challenger's question. So I'm going to ask first, do you need a minute to come up with a question? If not, all right, you're ready. Okay, so Victoria, if you would please begin with your question for Chad. Thank you.
Thank you. You have stated your support for the Dobbs decision, which overturned Roe v. Wade, and which took away the constitutional right to abortion in this country. My daughter, who's actually in the audience, she will grow up with less rights than I had at her age in the United States at this current rate. And now that the United States is criminalizing reproductive health and women are literally dying for lack of access to reproductive health care in the United States, do you still support the overturning of Roe v. Wade?
So the Dobbs decision, as you know, is a decision about the constitutionality of a federal law on abortion. Okay, looking in the Constitution, there is no right to an abortion. They had to go to the 14th Amendment to construe a right to privacy, and from there, a right to abortion. It was some legal gymnastics. And I feel that the Dobbs decision is on sounder constitutional footing because, as you know, we have enumerated powers for the federal government in this nation. And if it's not one of those enumerated powers, it falls to the states, which the 10th Amendment indicates. And so it appropriately should be at the state level. But especially now that it is at the state level, you need someone on both sides of the aisle who's going to defend reproductive rights. In the past, I've been endorsed by Planned Parenthood. As I mentioned before, I served on the National Committee, Republican Advisory Committee for Planned Parenthood. I am pro-choice, and I will fight for reproductive rights on the side of the aisle that my opponent can't get to.
All right, Chad, then your question for Victoria, please.
Yes. Let's talk about Highway 18. So Highway 18 has had a widening project that started in the early 90s. We had moved out just when it was starting in Auburn, and it stopped right where our exit was at the Issaquah-Hobart Road. And then it kind of got into a holding pattern for a long time. But Mark Mullet and others of us back when I was serving pushed really hard to get the intersection work done, which has finally progressed, if a little late. And then there was a widening project that Mark worked really hard for. Collectively, there are two projects for SR 18 that were reduced in the last session. The first one was $33.5 million for the widening project to continue on from Issaquah-Hobart to the intersection. And the other one was continuing the work on the intersection, which is another $16 million. So $49.5 million that was cut from a project that is probably the most important project for our district, but also safety-wise for the entire state. You served on the House Transportation Committee. So how did you fight for LD5 and SR 18 if it was the most gutted project in last year's budget?
I did serve on the Transportation Committee in the House of Representatives, and in the original transportation budget, I am sorry to say there was no funding for Highway 18, and there was no funding for the next phase, which is the phase that will continue this project. I fought behind closed doors and in the Transportation Committee and on the floor to make sure that we did have funding for the next phase of Highway 18. I know that this is a priority. I know that the unimproved stretch is dangerous. I mean, I took it going back and forth sometimes at very late hour of the night, 3 o'clock in the morning, coming back from Olympia to be home with my family after long evenings. And it is a scary stretch of road. It is also the #1 priority of cities across the district. And it is the priority of Eastside Fire and Rescue, as well as Snoqualmie Tribe. I'm very honored to have the support of Snoqualmie Tribe and of Eastside Fire and Rescue and their faith in me to get this project done.
Thank you. Thank you, candidates. Thank you for agreeing to come tonight and for agreeing to serve Issaquah and the state of Washington. Good luck to each of you as you complete your campaigns over the next few weeks.
Okay. So we will now take a short break while we prepare to meet the candidates for King County Council, Position 3.
Good evening. Now let's meet the candidates for King County Council Position 3. And also, could you please take a moment to silence your phones? The candidates for King County Council Position 3 are Sarah Perry and Rob Watton. We will use the same format as earlier. We will begin with 2-minute opening statements. During the question and answer period, each candidate will have 1 minute for responses and a 30-second optional rebuttal from the first responder. Our timer, Kathleen Friedman, is seated in the front row and will raise a warning when 15 seconds remain and a stop signal when time is up. Time permitting, the last question for each set of candidates will come from the opposed candidate themselves. Each candidate will have an opportunity to ask a question from their challenger. We'll begin with 2-minute opening statements from Rob, followed by Sarah. Rob?
We'll try that again. Thank you, Vicki and Judy. Thank you all for being here. This is such an important time in our county, but let me start with this. And it comes from my past experience. I served on the Encompass board for 6 years, and we had this saying, is what you learn early in life matters. And for me, growing up as a kid, it was about scouting. And it was, I learned 2 things. First is you always lead from the middle. And secondly, you step up when it's time to lead. And those couple things have carried me through life. And I can think of a couple recent things. First of all, when COVID hit, I knew the impact it was going to have on businesses. So I went out and made sure that I reached as many businesses, whether they banked with me or not. I'm a community banker, by the way, and made sure that they got the support they needed. And secondly, after COVID, I created the Snow Valley Jobs Board so that local employers could find employees. And that crazy thing in 4 years got 50,000 job seekers who had helped 150 businesses and time again helped folks. But the reason why I'm stepping up for this is because we're at that pivotal point where we need integrity with our financials. We need integrity with the work that we do. And we need to make sure that we're reaching across the table, across to everyone, to make sure that all voices are heard. And that's in my DNA. And I've done that as a community banker. And that's exactly why I'm in this race. And I appreciate your time.
I am Sarah Perry, King County Council member for District 3, running for re-election. Thank you to the American Association of University Women and Spirit of Issaquah Kiwanis Club, which I'm a member. I currently serve as Vice Chair of the Council, Chair of Local Services and Land Use, and Vice Chair of Flood Control District, among many other roles. I'm honored to serve our beautiful district, which includes the cities, towns, and surrounding areas of Issaquah, Sammamish, Redmond, Woodinville, Duval, Skykomish, Carnation, Falls City, Preston, Snoqualmie, North Bend, and Snoqualmie Pass. And if you give the residents of each area a chance, they'll tell you how unique they each are, and they would each be right. My priorities for re-election are informed by the registered voters in my district through thousands of annual survey responses over these last 4 years and from over 700 external meetings with first responders, nonprofit organizations, community groups, and leaders to date. The priorities include maintaining our roads and bridges, became our first priority this year. Safe and healthy communities moved to our second priority, saying we're feeling safer. Clean water, land, and fish habitats. More housing of all types, all income levels, and transit and mobility. So I am here to respond to what our voters want. I'm honored to have received over 200 endorsements, with 100 from elected leaders, including Congresswoman Schreier, Del Bene, Puyallup and Snoqualmie tribes, Governor Ferguson, senators and representatives, mayors and city council members, including each of the Snoqualmie city council members with the exception of my opponent. And over 100 endorsements from local and regional leaders and organizations, including labor, firefighters, corrections officers, and more. I've lived and worked here for decades, raising my family here, leading local nonprofits, and serving my community. My work on the council is grounded in listening to our people, bringing stakeholders together, and making government more transparent and accountable. I'm running for re-election because I believe our region needs proven leaders who can balance big picture policy with our day-to-day needs of local families, and one of the most critical times for proven leadership. I want to thank you for this opportunity to be with you today.
All right, we're going to start with our questions. And again, if you want me to repeat them, no problem. So the first question, Sarah, you will be answering this first. What safeguards will you recommend to ensure the honest use of public funds in the future?
That's a great question. Thank you. Councilmember Reagan Dunn and I, among others, asked for an audit of the executive in January for DCHS. We received that audit. We were surprised by the findings, And we are now taking very strong and clear steps to put safeguards in place and to become one of the most trusted counties we can in the country. So all of those efforts are already in place. We have several, we're working with consultants. We are looking at every single area of our government, knowing that 2% of our grants were audited. And we found, I think, $1 million at the end of the day in contracts that were given that needed funds that needed to be taken back. So we are taking this very, very seriously. I am enthusiastically supportive of the ordinances that we are putting forward to ensure tough controls and tough safeguards. And we'll be following that because we are the legislative branch that puts in check the executive branch.
All right, Rob?
Thank you very much. As I mentioned before, I'm a community banker. Not only a community banker, I've worked with nonprofits for multiple nonprofits over the years, and auditing is incredibly critical. And as a banker, I know that fraud is on the loose, and I get to deal with it every day. Every month, I have an audit for my business, and we can do the same with every nonprofit. I've served as treasurer of organizations. I've led audits. I have a 5-point plan. I'm the only candidate running for the King County Council that has a plan in place. We'll make sure that the nonprofits that are delivering the great services have the resources, the tools, and to make sure that our money is counted for, but every dollar will be counted. And I also have a plan as to how to recognize those nonprofits that do an exceptional job. And I appreciate this question.
All right, Sarah, a rebuttal?
Sure, yeah. My plan is very clearly stated in our ordinance, and we are looking to an umbrella organization for oversight so that we can work with those with dozens of years of accountability, working with nonprofit organizations who can meet the needs of our community as we had intended, and make sure that they are trained and that they have accountability and they're able to provide for us the receipts and everything that we need to make sure that we are spending our public dollars wisely. So we are very clear on our plan, and it is available for public consumption.
Okay. Given current funding cuts to Planned Parenthood, what measures can be taken to support women's health? Rob?
Thank you. I'm going to be the first person that says this is a private matter for individuals to deal with. I'm going to make sure that I'm supportive of the policy, but that freedom needs to be in place, and it will safeguard to make sure that it is.
Sarah?
Well, women have sovereignty over their bodies, full stop. And to suggest that we don't in our laws makes us less than a citizen, less than others with equal rights. And that's not acceptable. We are 51% of the population, and what we do with our body, how we choose to take care of our body in one way or another with our healthcare decisions is entirely and 100% up to us and cannot be dictated by those who don't have uteruses.
Rebuttal, Rob?
Mine's not going to be quite as biological, but I do agree.
All right, thank you. On to the next question. So Sarah, you will start with the answer. Our nation is deeply divided. Can you share an example of a time when you worked effectively with someone or a group with whom you had significant disagreements?
Reagan Dunn and I, it's no surprise, are on different sides of the aisle. We work very, very well together for unincorporated issues. For bomb cyclone safety, we came together to make sure that all of our residents were safe. There will be an announcement coming up this week about another environmental piece. We agree on basic values in certain areas, and where we do, we work hard to collaborate. And so I enjoy bringing people together. I've been called a radical centrist by the tradesmen, whatever that is. But it means essentially that I bring people together, and I'm very interested in working together with people who support all of the residents of our community. We have different views. We have a two-party system. We need to come together to make sure that we are bringing all good ideas, and I believe in that, as long as those good ideas don't harm our residents.
Thank you. Here's my answer. This is a nonpartisan position. Our cities are nonpartisan. We come together. You fill a pothole, and it doesn't matter whether you have a Republican view or a Democrat view. It just needs to get done. That's why I enjoy local politics, being in government, because we can stand together. We can always have different points of view, but it's not a Republican or a Democrat view. And I've done that on affordable housing. I will continue to do that work, seeking out the other side so that I can understand it better before I make a decision. And that has always been my guiding principle. And we will move forward together as one community. And you have my promise on that.
Sarah, a rebuttal or 30 seconds?
I'm just really grateful to have all of the support of the Snoqualmie City Council, many of whom are across the aisle. And so while it is nonpartisan, there are folks that have different ideological views on both sides, and I am really, really grateful for those endorsements.
Okay, next question. In today's anti-immigrant climate, what steps can be taken to reduce fear and foster a sense of security within our communities? Sorry, Rob first.
Well, first of all, everybody that's here deserves a safe community. Everybody deserves the protection that is offered through our public servants. Everyone deserves to make sure that we have the resources for them. My concern is this: I do not know enough yet about sanctuary cities to form a real opinion. My concern is this: if it's taking away valuable services to those that are already here legally, we need to protect that first. But I'm not at a position to say, and casting already a position on whether it's right or wrong. And this is one of the reasons why I'm running, is I want to seek out what is the real reality. And I want to make sure that everybody is safe.
We are a country based on immigrants. My Scottish ancestors, my English ancestors, we are based on immigrants, and we have an obligation to ensure due process. Our people are being picked up from Issaquah. They're here legally, they're going to church, they're paying their taxes, they're working, they're being picked up from Sammamish and disappeared. This is not okay. This is not okay. This is not the country that I believe in. And I will fight to make sure that every resident has due process in this country. It is an outrage what is happening. And I will do everything I can to protect those who are being taken without process, who are here legally, removed from this country. It's an abomination.
Rebuttal, Rob?
Thank you.
This is a two-part question. So if you need me to repeat it, no problem. How can you ensure that vote by mail in this state will be protected? How can we increase our confidence in the current election process? So Sarah first.
We are an award-winning county for vote by mail. So I'm going to speak to the county, not the state. We're an award-winning county in vote by mail, and every time we've been challenged, we have come up on the winning end of that, and we will continue because we have incredible integrity, incredible processes in place. It's been very, very successful, and I think that's why people don't want vote by mail, because it is successful. And so We have processes in place to make sure that we are protecting this at every level and that we are ensuring that there is a way to validate where you can go and you can have oversight. You can spend time in the King County elections to make sure that everything is done properly if you're concerned about that. But we are a model in this country and it is working. And I think that's what makes the other side nervous.
Rob?
Thank you. Kind of makes me a little bit concerned when you're talking about the other side. And here's the thing. We need voting integrity, and we need, as things change, we need to constantly monitor to make sure that our voting system is accurate, that it is competent, that it has integrity. But what's concerning to me is going back long enough to when we used to go into the polling places, that the number of people participating has not increased significantly. I would expect, and it was part of the vote by mail initiative of the state, is that it was supposed to increase the voting participation. And it's really disturbing to me when only 35% of our population times are voting. We need more people involved.
Sarah?
I would agree with that 100%. That doesn't mean that we stop a very successful process of voting by mail. So I think we should absolutely do more to get more people voting. But when something is working, we go with what's working.
Okay. What talents, skills, and values would you bring to this office? Rob, you're first, and there's no rebuttal on this one.
Great. Thank you very much. I like to think of myself as a citizen first, community volunteer, community banker that deals with businesses and families, and I get to see on the front lines of the challenges people have every day. The cost of living continues to rise, and it concerns me when government costs continue to outstrip what we're making because it's crippling us. It's and those are the things. I'm not a career politician, but I think time is now that we need somebody with 3 decades of private management experience at the county council level, helping to make the right decisions for all of us and making sure all voices are heard across this district, that every community has its uniqueness and every community has its voice. And I will make sure that it is elevated from the city and the communities up to the county, up to the state. Thank you very much.
Sorry. What talents, skills, and values would you bring to this office?
Thank you for that question. I believe in collaboration. I'm known by my staff as the round table queen. I believe that there's no conversation that more perspectives can't make better. And so we have conversations with the Snoqualmie Pass, with Fire and Police, and Washington State Patrol, and school districts. We have conversations with Fire and Police and Behavioral Health. We have conversations with Wildland Urban Interface, and it's all these roundtables because we need all of us in the conversation. And I'm very excited about the prospect of another term and engaging federal, state, county, and city community members or electeds, as well as community leaders in our conversations to make the very best decisions possible for our state. I'm very collaborative with all of our council members, and they would attest to that. And I believe deeply in leaning into community for what we can accomplish together.
Right. The next question. There is a shortage of mental health professionals, making it difficult for those in crisis to access timely care. How would you address the shortage in the mental health workforce? And we'll start with Sarah.
Thank you. I think we need apprenticeships. I think we need internships. I think we need to build on our community resources to make it a career focus. And we need to have incentives, hiring incentives, the way that we do for our corrections officers and our police departments, and really invest in this as a field. We have a lot of opportunity coming with our 5 crisis care centers that I led on, and I think we have some opportunities to think creatively and innovatively in this field, and I'm excited to be part of that conversation. I know a great deal about the behavioral health community and intersections, and have learned a great deal more over these last 4 years, and I am eager to get to work to do what we can to help the folks that are most vulnerable, whether it's brain chemistry or substance use, to get them back on track, make it a blip in their life so that they can get on with doing their lives.
Rob, go ahead.
I'm a big proponent of behavioral health and co-responders as chair of public safety for Snoqualmie and Snoqualmie with North Bend. Public safety needs to have that piece to it, because the behavioral health specialists can do things that others can't. And I've seen it firsthand in our responders. I think we need to put more emphasis on it. And I think that's one area that we're in probably close alignment on, and that is we need to put more resources here. How it happens, I don't know exactly, but it comes down to priorities. And I do know how to do that. I do budgets. I do. I make sure that organizations land well. And we need to make sure that that's one of our priorities. Thank you.
Sarah?
I very much look forward to working with Rob Watton in that area.
Okay, we'll wrap up this portion of the candidate forum with questions posed by the candidates themselves. Candidates, you'll have 1 minute to respond to your challenger's question. Have you got a question ready? Or should I give you a moment? You're okay. Sarah, you're first with your question for Rob.
Rob, my question is how you feel that you can meet the diverse needs of the full district when you voted against flying the Pride flag and the Juneteenth flag for community members that are deeply under siege by our national government right now with basic civil rights. I'm wondering how you can meet the needs of our diverse community that way.
Thank you. Well, let me tell you what the vote was. The vote was whether to fly other flags outside City Hall as well as inside. And my comments were these: that the American flag and the state flag represent all of us. And I said, inside City Hall, you can fly any of the flags. I have no issue with that, but I did vote against the measure because it wasn't specific enough. There is no reason to replace the US flag outside when we only have one flagpole.
Okay, Rob, your question for Sarah.
Sarah, first of all, I want to thank you for serving our communities the last 4 years. Public safety is a huge concern. You were chair of the budget committee that cut public safety by $70 million, restored it with $845,000, and then you had a recent incident where you misidentified state troopers as federal agents. How do you justify those positions?
Thank you very much for this question. As many know, I lost my husband 5.5 months ago, the late Senator Bill Ramos. I have had some challenging times with this, and I've had a couple moments of lapse of judgment. That was one of them. I was intending to support our community, our Latino community, which I'm very close to my heart and is his community. I had been told that ICE was near us, and I took a text that I received. I didn't alter it. I was very tired, and I, in an incredible lapse of judgment, posted that. I took it down. My intention was never to identify ICE and their location. My intention was to help the families know where they needed to be careful. Here legally, they're being disappeared. And I immediately called our Washington State Patrol Captain, Ron Mead, and Dion Glover and apologized. They know I've been with them for 4 years. They recognized their own errors, and they knew my heart was with them. I continue to apologize for that. I have made a mistake, and I'm deeply supportive of law enforcement. Thank you for that question.
So to finish up with these candidates, we will give you an opportunity for a 1-minute wrap-up by each person. So we will start with, I think, Sarah. Thank you.
Thank you again for providing yet another excellent forum, as you do with the University Women and Kiwanis. I appreciate the opportunity to be in the forum with my candidate, Rob Watton. For this position, I am honored by the opportunity to continue to serve another term. There are many, many irons in the fire. I've worked with so many people. We have so many exciting things in front of us, and leadership right now, proven leadership right now, is very, very important. I believe I am the right candidate for this position and will work very hard as I have these 4 years. I will continue that work and would be very honored by your vote and confidence in me. Thank you.
Go ahead, Rob.
Thank you very much. It is an honor for me to be running for this position. Know this, I will always stand for all the voices, that I will make sure that everyone is heard. I stand as an independent voice. We have very special needs, very unique needs from the rest of the county, and that is where I'm going to put my dedication to. Time and time again, my opponent has referenced being with the majority or one party or the other. To me, this is not a party thing. This is about an us thing. And it's making sure that we take care of our communities first, that they get the transportation, the supportive services, the care that we all deserve, and that we get our fair share of King County the way that we need to have it delivered. And that's what I'll work for every day for District 3.
Thank you, candidates. Thank you for agreeing to come tonight and for agreeing to serve Issaquah and King County. Good luck to each of you as you complete your campaigns over the next few weeks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We will now take a short break while we prepare to meet the candidates for 41st Legislative District Representative Position 1.
Before we move to introducing the candidates for the 31st Legislative District, Mayor Polly would like to make a statement. Thank you.
Thank you very much to the Kiwanis for having candidate forums. I honestly don't think we have enough candidate forums, and so I appreciate the effort you put into doing this. But I feel compelled to actually correct something that was said earlier about people being disappeared in Issaquah. Our police department is in compliance with the governor's order on what level of cooperation is expected from agencies. We are working with social service agencies. We are helping families connect to their family members if they have been picked up by ICE enforcement and placed somewhere. And nobody has been disappeared in Issaquah. That is an incorrect statement, and I want to make sure that it's on the record that that is not true. And also part of just getting the community to think about public safety, if you know somebody who is concerned about using local government resources to help them find their loved one who has been picked up, maybe not able to communicate with them anymore, we are the organization you should talk to. We are the organization that is working to connect family members with those who have been picked up by ICE. We're also here to take down the temperature in the community about fear and truth. And so I just want to let you know, people are not being disappeared in Issaquah. That is not what we are experiencing. And I felt very strongly that Kiwanis, if they would provide me this opportunity, that I needed to put that on the record and make sure that part of what viewers are seeing here when they hear these comments, They are not thinking that Issaquah is a place where the city government is sitting and standing by when people are being disappeared. It is not happening in this community. You know where to find us, you know how to reach us, and we're here to help. So please use our resources to help all of our community members feel safe and protected and guided through extremely difficult and challenging times in this country. I heard a couple of comments from some of the candidates introduced in the panels tonight, and I just want to say thank you for standing up to do this. We are going to be stronger together. We need to not talk about party politics. We need to be in this together because we all have good hearts and we all have good intents, and that's why people run for local office. So remember, call us or send somebody to call us. Call me if you know somebody that needs help. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Mayor Polly. So we will take a quick little transition to have our candidates come up and take their seats, please. Thank you. And now let's meet the candidates for Legislative District 41, State Representative, Position 1. We will use the same ad as earlier. We will begin with 2-minute opening statements. During the question and answer period, each candidate will have 1 minute for responses and a 30-second optional rebuttal from the first responder. Our timer, Kathleen Friedman, is here sitting in the front. She will raise a warning when 15 seconds remain and a stop signal when time is up. And then the last question for each set of candidates will come from their opposed candidates themselves. Each candidate will get an opportunity to ask their challenger a question. The candidates for District 41, State Representative Position 1, are Janice Zahn and John Whitney. We will begin our 2-minute opening statements from Janice, followed by John.
Well, good evening, everybody, and I want to thank you for hosting this candidate forum because I think it's very important for voters to hear from the candidates and understand what we bring to the office. My name's Janice Zahn. I was appointed and started on day 10 of this session. And I have lived in the city of Bellevue for 31 years, served 7 years on the Bellevue City Council. And in that time, I would say that I am known for spending time out in community, listening first to understand what the issues are, and then rolling up my sleeve and doing something about it. And when I was down in Olympia, one of the things that I did as part of the local government committee was I met weekly with the lobbyist that represents our cities to make sure that as I'm voting on bills, that I understood what was the most important to the cities that I am representing, as well as having 205 constituent lobbyist meetings so that as we're working on policy that impacts all around the state, that I really understand deeply what the issues are in order to work on solving them. I am one of the only engineers in Olympia that has experience in capital delivery and transportation. And in this time where we have such need in infrastructure and delivery, it's really important to make sure that we have a voice that represents that. I heard earlier your concern about Highway 18 and the work that we need to make sure that the very infrastructure that we need in our community are being addressed. That's what I brought to Olympia, hearing that we needed funding for education, that we needed to address homelessness and housing. And in fact, while I was in Olympia, I had posted up on my wall the state priorities for Issaquah and the Issaquah School District. Thank you.
John? And then please push the button to turn on your microphone.
There we go. Hi, I'm John Whitney. I'm delighted to be here, and I'm even more thankful that you are all here. It shows that you're concerned about the government and how we can serve you. Why I'm here, I've been in business my whole life. I have a perspective to be able to do more with less, and I think that's something that the government can use, and that's part of the reason I'm running. One of the things that disturbs me is that for the last couple of years, I've seen in the newspapers, online, that we're going to go into a recession. And the warning signs are all around us. And yet the government continued to spend more money than they took in. And now there's, even after a huge tax increase, there's still a deficit to be made up by you and I. And I just think we need vision that can say, you know what? It's time to do things differently. We need to pull up our bootstraps and make things work. I'm also really concerned about family rights. I think families need to be able to raise their kids as they see fit. And I want to see law and order upheld in our cities. The people that I'm talking to, you know, it's quite interesting. They'll say unusual things to me. At least they're said, oh, we don't have much crime. You know, the only thing that's ever happened is 2 years ago, the car got stolen out of my carport. And it's like, we need to have a safe environment. And that's what I want for our citizens. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We're now going to start with our questions, and I can repeat any question if you need that. Our first question is, our state has taken significant steps to improve mental health crisis response rates, yet continues to fall behind on services that keep people from getting to crisis in the first place. How will you prioritize prevention and early intervention services? John, you're first.
There we go. How will I prioritize prevention on mental health services?
And early intervention.
Interesting question. I haven't given that a lot of thought. My first go-to on things like that is that we need to rely on our Lord Jesus. And there's plenty of churches and people that can come alongside people in crisis, that can steer them the right direction. All too many times people turn to drugs and other things when times are tough. Thank you.
Thank you. Janice?
Yes, thank you for this question. It is a very important question for us to address. It was something that when I was on the Bellevue City Council, we stood up a joint police social worker CCAT program. And at the state, I'm really proud of the fact that we passed House Bill 2049, where cities actually have the ability to collect a bit more sales tax in order to actually fund both law enforcement as well as first responder programs. We had a bill that didn't quite make it this year yet in the legislature, where we would have also done more with helping different cities and counties to stand up co-responder models, recognizing that we need both the services and the outreach as well as more facilities to help the very people that we're trying to serve, recognizing that when we went through the recession in 2010, our austerity budget did not help at all.
John, do you have a rebuttal?
Not so much a rebuttal, but I would say accountability needs to be a big part of government. We need to understand how many people we're really helping with tax dollars. And I don't see a lot of accountability for things. So how many people went in and how many people are actually helped? And if it's working, great. And if it's not, time to move on. Thank you.
All right, our next question. All the candidates say they support public safety. What does that mean to you, and how will you actively address it? Janice, first, please.
Yes, thank you for that question. I would say that community safety is important. And when I think about safety, it is both fire, police, public safety, as well as transportation safety. So what we see is that part of the work we also need to do, because I talked a little bit about the first responders and law enforcement already. So I really want to lean into the fact that in this legislative session, we actually did some work around transportation safety. I dropped a bill on Vision Zero to require collaboration and design for safety on our roads. In addition to that, part of the work we also did was work around driver's education to make sure that we actually have students that are learning how to drive, that there is online driver's education, because right now it's very expensive to take driver's ed, and you can get a license when you're 18 without actually going through any driver's education. Thank you.
Public safety is a huge concern of mine. First off, we need to make crime a crime. It needs to be punished instead of enabled. When people can go to the grocery store and steal things and not be held accountable, that's a problem. When we don't follow the laws of the land, it's a problem. And I see that in all areas. And as I was doorbelling, not talking to people, one person had a really good take on this. He said, you know, my kids always ask for things at the grocery store. And I say, hey, I don't have enough money to do that. But then they see people taking things. And it just sets up the precedent that it's okay for me to steal. And that leads to problems down the line. It encourages people to have that lifestyle of theft is okay. Thank you.
Janice, rebuttal?
Yes, I would say that I agree that we need to address our criminal justice system and make reforms to make sure that we're actually addressing the issues that we see in our community. We had a task force that looks at retail crime in Washington State in collaboration, and we need to continue to work together between cities, counties, and state to address the very issues that we see in our community. Thank you.
Okay, next question. What motivated you to run for this office, John?
I saw our culture kind of moving away from center, and it really frightened me, where crime is enabled, where people no longer respect other people. They take violence into their own hands. We see that in the national news every day, and it's frightening. I really want to make a difference. I've always lived a life of service, and this is a wonderful way for me to give back in a more impactful way. I also thought having an overriding kind of larger vision of like, this is the direction we need to go. We can't keep spending tons of money on all these programs that don't benefit a very large group, because it drives out our businesses, the people that pay the most taxes. And I think, you know, the report card on the state is I've seen more people are leaving than coming in. And when you leave, it means you're not happy.
Thank you. Janice, what motivated you to run for this office?
Well, I would say that I believe experience matters, and that's where when I looked at the time in the legislature since we had Representative Judy Cleburne, we haven't had an engineer with transportation and capital delivery experience in Olympia. And right now, I am the only one in the legislature with that experience. We spend billions of dollars in delivering capital projects and transportation. And I believe that in addition to having lawyers, teachers, healthcare, human services, that we need to have an engineer voice in Olympia to make sure that as we're spending billions of dollars around the state, that we're doing it from a practitioner voice and being able to bring that voice along with my experience in local government and the experience that I bring from around the country as a former board member of the National League of Cities, where we hear about so many different ideas that Washington State could look at, because we know that partnerships make things happen. Thank you.
There's no rebuttal on that one.
Next question. In light of the shrinkage of available FEMA funds, how can the state step up to help residents in the event of natural disasters? Janice first.
Yeah, I would say it's absolutely critical because we know that city governments are strained already with their budgets. So this year, we worked really hard in Olympia for bomb cyclone support. And in working with Representative Callan, we were able to bring money for bomb cyclone relief for the cities in the 41st. We need to continue to actually look at resiliency and hardening our community so that we are doing more to look at prevention as part of that. In addition, we need to fight for FEMA funds from the federal level and not accept that right now, just because they don't want to pay for FEMA funds, that we accept that. In addition, working with our new insurance commissioner to better understand what we can do related to our insurance instruments that are available, whether it's for seismic, flood, fires. Thank you.
All right, John.
I think first off, we got to use common sense. We should no longer allow building in floodplains because there's going to be a problem. And then you're asking the people to pay for a problem that essentially the end user created by building in areas that are disaster prone. We can't really avoid the earthquake zones because they run throughout the region, but we can certainly avoid building in floodplains. And as far as relying on other folks, I mean, you should rely on your own insurance. If you see fit to be afraid of earthquakes, you should get earthquake insurance and you're covered. It's not the government's responsibility to bail everybody out. I understand a natural disaster that can't be helped, but ones we have insurance for, we gotta just say it's up to the individual.
All right, Janice, rebuttal.
Well, I would say that when I think about FEMA, that is when we have an emergency. And we need to work harder with our different insurance carriers because right now there's only 3 in the state. So if we aren't working with our insurance carriers, we're going to find ourselves in a place where our community actually can't get insurance. And that would be absolutely catastrophic. Thanks.
Next question. What values, skills, and talents would you bring to this office, John?
Well, being in business, you have to do more with less. Like I was talking about in my opening statement, the available tax dollars have been forecast to be shrinking for years because of the recession, and now they are actually sinking. We just saw today that a company that financed a building in downtown Bellevue was a big multinational trust, and they declared bankruptcy. There's not going to be money to pay taxes, and I don't believe it's prudent to be spending lots of money that you don't have, and then when it comes time for a rainy day, and situations like we're in now, you're kind of stuck. So being able to do more with less, I'm really good at. As far as procuring things, also good at that because that's the way the building business works. Thank you.
Yeah, I would say that earlier I said that experience matters, especially in these times where we see a huge budget deficit that we continue to have. We see the impacts from HR1 at the federal level that we are going to have to find a way to support the very communities that are getting their funding pulled. I am an engineer that has both private experience as well as public experience working for the Port of Seattle, delivering projects. On the City Council, I have worked to define the very issues that we're trying to solve and then worked collaboratively to bring solutions things like making sure that we have land use zoning so we actually can have a homeless shelter in our city, starting a safe parking program, because what we were seeing was families in our district that were living in their cars without support. I think that we can always talk about the very issues that we face, but the reality is that what we need is to actually start solving the very problems that we have, including experience working in government to solve issues.
Budget has been brought up several times and in the last couple of comments. So this is a follow-up question. What difficult budget decisions do you see ahead as federal funds are shrinking? And if you can be specific, that would be great. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Well, I would say that that is one of the largest things facing our state is to look at, so this year we had a $16 billion budget deficit going into the budget. So we worked really hard to balance what level of revenue we were going to take on and budget cuts. And we will need to continue to do that, both from the operating budget as well as our transportation and capital budget. I went to Olympia with a charge from the school district that we needed to find ways to fund our schools. So one of the bills that we passed, 2049, actually lifted the levy so that in the next school session, there will be an extra $6 million to the Issaquah School District. So we need to be listening to our community, understanding what are the budget issues that they need us to fight for them in Olympia, and then digging in with our colleagues to find solutions that work.
John?
Can you repeat the question? What? Go ahead.
Yes, I can repeat the whole thing or just the question part?
Just the question.
Okay. What difficult budget decisions do you see ahead as federal funds are shrinking? And be specific if you can.
I don't think I can be specific. However, I believe we need to stay with the core competencies and the core requirements of government, which are infrastructure, schools, and safe neighborhoods, which is crime. A lot of the other programs that we have, while they're wonderful, if we don't have the money, we don't have the money, and they'll need to be cut. We need to take a look and see which programs benefit the most people, and those are the programs that stay, and the ones that benefit the least amount of people would have to go. And I would like the money spent in areas where people actually use them. For instance, the roads aren't very good. I'd like to see money spent on roads instead of mass transit, which only 4 or 5% of the population uses. It's great, but the majority of people aren't being well served.
Janice, a rebuttal?
Yes, well, I would say that my rebuttal is that as a state legislator, you don't get to say that I don't really know, because we have a fiduciary duty to serve our community. And actually, one of the pieces I didn't quite say in my remarks is that the largest piece that we are getting cut in HR 1 is our healthcare. That is something that we have to address. And as we look at what cuts are still possible, we also need to look at where are the other places where we had a number of revenue bills that did not move. We need to revisit. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question. Small businesses are vital to the vibrancy of our communities. What actions do you propose to help them survive and thrive? John, you first.
Reduce regulations. Regulations are taxes on business, and it drives them away. And I don't think Olympia understands that. We need to make it easier to do business by taxing them less. This B&O tax is a top-line tax before there's any profit. And the small businesses and even large businesses tell me they're making plans to leave because the environment isn't the environment that they first came to know when they establish their businesses here. And that's the interesting thing. If it doesn't work for your business, they are portable and they just leave. And then there's no one left to pay taxes. Thank you.
Yes, I agree. Our small businesses are the backbone of our community. Most of the businesses in Washington State are small business. When we were looking at our revenue bills, we were very intentional to look at creating thresholds that supported or kept small businesses from having to pay into the B&O tax. We spent time out in the community understanding what the right threshold would be so that we were able to support our small business while we tried to balance our shortfalls. I think the other thing we need to do is work on the kind of resources that make it easier for them to get access to grants and different resources that are available. Before I got in the legislature, one of the things that I worked on was creating a bill that set up a small business certification so that they unlocked access to public works contracting. Thank you.
John, do you have a rebuttal?
You know, it's unusual to think that the government needs all this money, and for what? The businesses are here to support families. They're not here to support the government. So we need to take heart to that and not get the wrong direction on where the money's supposed to go. It's supposed to go in families' pockets and not the government's.
We will wrap up the question portion of the candidate forum with questions posed by the candidates themselves. Candidates, you will have 1 minute to respond to your challenger's question. Now, do either one of you need a moment to come up with a question for your opponent? All right, we will take a little moment. All right, then we will start with Janice. Your question for John, please.
Yes, John, I was listening to your comments tonight, and several times you talked about having a vision, doing things differently, and making things work. And yet, I've also heard you say that you hadn't quite thought about what the solution is. So I'm really just trying to understand, when you talk about doing things differently, what specific policy bills would you propose to actually address some of the issues that we have? Because I haven't heard any solutions so much as identifying things you don't like.
That's a fair question. Thanks, Janice. First of all, if you're going to steal something, you're going to be penalized. I don't know what that penalty is going to be. It could be cleaning up graffiti. It could be going to jail. It depends on the extent of the crime. As far as the vision goes, we have certain services that we need, and the vision is, how are we going to get that done for less? How are we going to get, I just see so many things where we just throw money away, and I just think it's a government mentality as opposed to a business mentality. I mean, we retrofitted a ferry and it doesn't work. Went from perfectly working diesel, now it's electric and it's already broken. So how do those things happen? It's just outside of our comfort zone.
John, your question for Janice, please.
Janice, how did we get here? I mean, we have this huge budget deficit, and we keep spending this money, even though we're cutting back on things. But how do we get here, and how do we get to a point where we spend what we take in?
Well, I would say that, I started in January, so I'm going to start off by saying that I'm not going to try to put in my mind what my fellow previous legislators were thinking about to get us to this point. What I might comment on instead is when we were confronted with the $16 billion shortfall, I think the legislature was thoughtful in looking at all the different areas where cuts could be made. So we had, I believe, about $6 or $7 billion of cuts. And then we also listened to the community about where are the areas where any more cuts are actually going to create more issues, and worked on creating a fairer tax structure where those that are struggling the most are not paying the most. And I would say that in addition to operations, that's also looking at our transportation, where I own an EV. I am willing to pay more because I'm actually putting roads. What was that? Was that the stop? Oh, okay. Yes, thank you. I was looking at him, so.
That's no problem. All right. So now we're going to finish up with a 1-minute wrap up by each person. We're going to start with John and then Janice.
I'd be delighted to serve you all. And I will be very frugal with your money because I know it's your money, spending it on the things that we need most. We need roads that work so we can get to work quickly, without delays, without potholes, that we can feel safe in our homes, that we can live affordably because we're not paying taxes to support tons and tons of programs that don't directly benefit the majority of people. We've got this huge system that we're all trying to support, and it's breaking because we don't have enough money for it, and we're taxing ourselves into a hole that's getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and I want to prevent that. Thank you.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for having us. I would start out by saying that we need government that works for the people. We need to listen to our community, our cities, and what we hear that they need. We also know that there's a lot of things that the private sector is not going to fund because it is not profitable, and that's why government needs to step in. I agree with my colleagues that we need to look at our tax structure. We need to transform our tax structure so we're not actually taxing those that are least able to pay for the very services that they need. And part of that is being fiscally judicious so that we're actually working on being proactive as well as addressing the short-term issues that we have. We cannot afford to continue to not fund the very things that we know is going to cost us more if we don't address it today. It's kind of like if we don't fix potholes, then we end up having to replace the road. Thank you.
Thank you both. We want to thank all the candidates again for their participation in tonight's forum. The City of Issaquah's IT department and staff have recorded tonight's forum to be replayed until the election on City Channel 21, streamed on the city's website and available on the city's YouTube channel. Please tell your friends to tune in so they too can become more informed voters.
And as voters, we are reminded by world events that the precious freedom we have in America, the right to vote, that guarantees so many other rights, comes through citizen participation. You can make a difference just by being an active, informed voter. Please remember to fill out your ballot and vote by November 4th. And please join us next Wednesday, October the 8th at 6:30 for the candidate forum for City Council and Issaquah School Board. Thank you and good night.